In 2020, Among Us exploded into a global phenomenon thanks to a perfect storm of timing and charm. With people around the world stuck at home, the game's simple premise and chaotic social gameplay made it the go-to way to connect and laugh with friends. Major Twitch streamers and YouTubers quickly embraced it, sending viewership into the stratosphere and turning every emergency meeting into must-watch content. By November, the game soared to an unbelievable 500 million monthly players, topped mobile app charts across iOS and Android, and outshined even the biggest titles in streaming. What began as a small, nearly forgotten indie release suddenly became the cultural heartbeat of 2020, proof that sometimes a humble little game can take the world by surprise. But as quickly as Among Us rose, cracks began to form in the whole. The game's biggest misstep was its slow, incremental updates, offering little new content right when its massive new audience was hungry for more. At the same time, hacking issues, server instability, and waves of toxic behavior started creeping into lobbies, chipping away at the core social deduction fun that made the game shine. And beneath it all, the repetitive gameplay loop and limited meta began catching up with players, leading to a growing sense of fatigue once the initial novelty faded. Among Us's meteoric rise also highlighted the challenges of sustaining a viral phenomenon. By the time the game finally expanded to consoles and even VR, the initial explosion of interest had already subsided, making those long-awaited ports feel like they just arrived just a bit too late. On top of that, this team struggled to turn such massive popularity into long-term revenue, missing key opportunities to build sustainable monetization without alienating players. In the end, Among Us became a reminder of how fragile virality truly is, how even the brightest trends can fade quickly if they aren't supported by steady growth and a deeply rooted community. At the height of Among Us's popularity, the game hit a wall it wasn't prepared for. Innersloth, a tiny 3-person team at the time, struggled to deliver updates at the speed millions of new players expected. Promised features like the new airship map took months, and aside from small bug fixes, there was little fresh content to keep the experience evolving. Meanwhile, the game's sudden fame brought a wave of problems. Widespread hacking, account spoofing, and constant server overload that often made matches unplayable. Without proper anti-cheat systems or the infrastructure to handle the surge, the core social deduction gameplay started breaking apart. And once players mastered the limited set of tasks and strategies, the loop began feeling repetitive, pushing many toward boredom just as quickly as they had jumped in. Aside from that, the gaming landscape was shifting around Among Us. A surge of new social deduction titles and countless Among Us clones flooded the market, fracturing player attention. Meanwhile, industry giants like Fortnite and Warzone dropped major updates that pulled casual players back into their ecosystems. And later on top that it was the accelerating influence of TikTok, where rapid-fire content fostered shorter attention spans and an endless appetite for the next big trend, it was making it even harder for Among Us to hold on to the spotlight it once dominated. Even as its player count has dwindled from its explosive peak, Among Us continues to cast a long shadow across the gaming landscape. Its success helped open the floodgates for newest social deduction titles like Goose Goose Duck, and even pushed larger competitive games such as the Finals to experiment with more social, deception-driven elements. Beyond gameplay influence, its cultural footprint remains unmistakable, having introduced millions of non-gamers to interact entertainment and cemented social deduction as a mainstream genre. Now the question lingers, will Among Us ever rise again, or will it remain a nostalgic symbol of 2020, an unforgettable yet fleeting moment in gaming history?